MLS is winding down as we're down to the final 8 teams in the conference semifinals this weekend. Now, it's been a great year of MLS betting, and let's hope to finish on a high with just a few games left in the season. I'm going to run through the 4 games this weekend and come with one parlay best bet at the end of this video. So let's get started, and it starts on Saturday with Orlando and Columbus in the East. Orlando were second in the conference with 63 points. Columbus were not far behind in third with 57 points. In the 2 games when these teams played this season, they drew 2-2 in Columbus, and Orlando won 4-3 at home. There's been 2 or more goals in each of the past 8 between these teams, and also in 11 of the past 12. Both teams to score has hit in 7 of 8. Both teams scored over 2.5 is 3-3, and also has hit in 5 of 6. Orlando has won 8 of 10 versus Columbus overall, and all 6 recently when played at home. In the playoffs this year, Orlando beat Nashville both home and away 1-0 in round 1 to get here. Columbus, they beat Atlanta 2-0 at home with no Almada for Atlanta. Then they lost in Atlanta with Almada back in the lineup 4-2. And they won again at home 4-2 again in game 3 to advance. So just like the regular season where they were the highest scoring team, they scored the most goals so far in the playoffs, scoring 8 goals. And Cucho Hernandez had 3 goals in that round 1. Let's look overall at Orlando this season. They have now won 6 straight games, and they're also undefeated in 7. They've scored in all 7 of those games, but they've also kept clean sheets in 5 of 7 and also in 5 of the last 6. Now, that's similar to how they were all season, actually, as they allowed the 5th fewest goals in the league. In all competitions, they also have just 2 losses across their last 17 games, and they've also scored in 16 of those 17. Orlando was very strong at home in MLS this season, going 9-5-2. They scored 31, and they allowed 19. In any competition, they are now undefeated in 14 home games, and they've scored in all 14 of those games. Over-unders are an even 7-7 when you look at 2.5 totals. Bets on both teams to score in those games are 9-5. Columbus, for the season, they only have 1 loss in their past 9 games now. Bets on both teams to score, and their games have been 9-2 in the past 11. Now, there's been at least 2 or more goals in each of their past 27 games as well. They score, they concede. That's been the story all season. They were the highest scoring team in MLS with 67 goals. In all competitions in 2023, we'll just keep running this stat out every week I do an MLS video. They've scored in 40 of 43, but they've also conceded in 33 of 43. And that's their Achilles heel, and it's the defending. They gave up the 10th most non-penalty XG in the regular season. Historically, they haven't been good away from home in playoffs, being 0-5 and 11 in their past 16 road playoff games. So that's a trend that does not bode well for them winning here. However, those are trends from past Columbus teams and not this one. Now, there's 2 different styles here. Orlando shut down Nashville with 2 1-0 wins, but Nashville can't score to save their lives. Columbus will be a completely different animal here. They possess the ball. They'll attack at will. It's hard not to back Columbus scoring. It's something they've done all year, but they also generally always concede. Orlando's also been just amazing at home. They are scoring goals, and they should be able to break down this Columbus defense as well. This very easily could be a both team to score. It could be a both team to score in over 2.5, but Orlando's been also keeping a lot of clean sheets. So we'll come back to this at the end for the best bet. The next Eastern Conference game is Cincinnati and Philadelphia. Cincinnati were first in the conference with 69 points. They also won the Supporters' Shield. Philadelphia was 4th with 55 points. Cincinnati won 1-0 at home, and they drew 2-2 in Philly this season. Home teams are undefeated in the last 6, going 4-2-0 when these teams meet up. In the playoffs, Cincinnati beat the Red Bulls 3-0 at home, and then they won in PKs in New York after drawing 1-1 in Game 2 to advance from round 1. Meanwhile, Philly beat New England 3-1 at home and 1-0 on the road to get here. They met last year in the playoffs as well, with Philly winning 1-0 at home in the conference semifinals. Could we see another same result this year, or maybe Cincinnati returns the favor? We'll find out. Cincinnati have just 1 loss in 9. They've scored in all 9. Both teams' scores also 6-3 in those 9 games. They've only failed to score in 2 of 21 games in all competitions of late. They were also 13-2-2 at home in the regular season, where they scored 33 and they allowed 13. But recently, home form hasn't been as strong for Cincinnati, being just 3-1-4 in the past 8 across all competitions. They've been money, though, to score all season long at home, as they've scored in 40 of their past 41 home games in all competitions, going all the way back to last year. Now, that one time they failed to score was a 1-0 game against Orlando, and that's also the only time in their past 16 games there hasn't been at least 2 or more goals. For Philadelphia, they have also been hot with only 1 loss in 11 in MLS, as well as only 3 losses in the past 22 across all competitions. They also have 6 draws in their past 10 games, though. So they're not losing. They haven't necessarily won tons of games of late either. Win, lose, or draw, though, the Union have scored in 15 of 17 and in 20 of 23 as well. They've also scored in 8 of 8 on the road and in 14 of 15 away in all competitions. So even on the road, they're still a dangerous team to score. Their road games have seen both teams score in 5 of 6. They've also seen 2 or more goals in those road games in 13 of 14. For Philadelphia, we're going to look at a few injuries here. Carranza has been injured with a hamstring. He missed the last game, but has been training. Hopefully will return. They'll be missing Kai Wagner on defense through suspension and Jacob Glesnes also on defense through injury. Their top goal scorers this year were Gazdag, Carranza, and Ure. So hopefully, for their sake, Carranza coming back would certainly help them offensively. But Cincinnati's also dealing with some absences. Matt Miazga is suspended. Fellow center back Nick Hagelin is injured. They were, though, 3-2-2 without Miazga this year. Their goal scorers were Acosta, Vasquez, Barrial, who had 18, 8, and 7, but also only in 12 games. Bupenza also had 6, so they have plenty of players capable of scoring. We, again, have 2 teams in incredible form here that just always seem to be scoring, and there seems to be goals in their games for both of these teams. Cincinnati especially always score at home, but you can also say the same for Philadelphia based on all the stats that we just went through. And they will get Cincinnati minus Miazga. But then Philadelphia, as I said, are missing some of their defenders as well. Glesnes and Wagner, though Wagner could be actually more of a loss offensively. So this is tough. Philadelphia has owned this conference in recent years, but it does look to be shifting in the way of Cincinnati. I have a bet on Philadelphia to win the MLS Cup from way back before the season started. So this is also tough to go against them now. I think this could go either way. I don't think either team is substantially better or worse than the other. Cincinnati has the home field advantage. This could very well be a both teams to score. We could also see a draw going into extra time as well if you were looking to bet this by itself. We'll come back to this, like I said, at the end to make up a parlay. Now, that concludes the 2 games on Saturday. We have 2 more on Sunday in the Western Conference that will be going down. Now, before we move on, and while you're listening, be sure, give me your picks in the comments. Who do you like? What are your favorite picks? What are your upsets, your parlays? Just drop anything in there. And if you're liking these videos, it's a ton of help to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more picks all year long. Let's get into Sunday, and it's Houston and Sporting Kansas City. Houston were 4th with 51 points. SKC were 8th with 44 points in the conference. Now, they played 3 times. Houston won 1-0 in the U.S. Open Cup, and they drew 2-2 in Houston, and then SKC won 2-1 in KC. SKC, they've been good versus Houston in recent years, being 5-2-1 in all competitions. Home teams have also dominated this head-to-head, being 7-2-0 in the past 9. Now, in the playoffs, Houston needed 3 games to get past RSL in round 1. They won 2-1 at home. They lost in PKs in Salt Lake after a 1-1 draw. Then they won in PKs back at home after another 1-1 draw. SKC has basically been in playoff mode for weeks as they were out of the playoffs with the season winding down, and they only got in on decision day. They drew 0-0 to San Jose in the wild card. They went on to win in PKs, and then in round 1 they beat their rivals St. Louis 4-1 and 2-1. In their 3 playoff games, Houston has now seen both teams to score in 6. After their 3 playoff games now, Houston's now seen both teams to score, hitting in 6 straight games as well as in 10 of 11 in all competitions. Now, since the League Cup, the Dynamo have also been on fire. They've been 10-4-2 in all competitions and only have 1 loss, that 1 loss to RSL in the playoffs in any of their past 8 games. Houston were also dominant at home this season, one of the best home teams, going 11-4-2. They scored 36 and they only conceded 11 goals. But if you include the Leagues Cup and the U.S. Open Cup, then that record looks even better as they're 18-4-2 in all competitions this year. They just rarely seem to lose at home, so this will be a huge advantage for Houston in this playoff game. But SKC, they've now won 5 straight themselves, and they've also scored multiple goals in 4 games. They've also only failed to score twice in their past 19 games across all competitions. SKC games have been some of the more higher scoring games this season as they are 24-10 to totals of over 2.5. That's tied for the most overs to that total of any team. Now, while they only had 3 wins on the road in MLS during the regular season, they have won 3 of 4 on the road, and they have scored in each of their past 10 away in all competitions. However, historically, a road playoff win is very rare for SKC. They've only won on the road twice in 27 all-time road playoff games in their team history. For SKC, they have 1 injury. They lost left back Logan Nembe out with a torn ACL from last round. This one, my gut says there's goals. We see Houston's been so good At home, they should score. SKC has plenty of players capable of scoring, but they're not always tight at the back. This looks like we could see some goals. Once again, we'll come back to this for the parlay at the end. Seattle and LAFC rounds out the games on the weekend. Seattle was second in the conference with 53 points. LAFC were third with 52. They played to some tight games this season with a 0-0 draw in Seattle and a 1-0 win for LA in LA. Bets on under 2.5 have been 3-1 in the past 4 and 5-2 in the past 7 between these teams. Home teams are undefeated in the past 11 meetings, going 8-3-0. Seattle themselves are undefeated at home against LAFC in the past 7 home games they've played. Now in the playoffs, Seattle beat Dallas 2-0 at home. They lost 3-1 in Dallas and then won Game 3 1-0 back in Seattle. LAFC drew Vancouver 1-1 on decision day, and they got that same team right again in the playoffs where they beat them 5-2 and 1-0 in the 2 games in round 1 to advance. The Sounders on this season, while they might have not been super flashy, they were quietly one of the best teams in the league in the late stages of the season. That one loss to Dallas in the playoffs was their only defeat in their past 12 games. They've also kept clean sheets in 4 of their past 5 games. They were just 7-6-4 though at home, scoring 19 and allowing 11 this season, but they have just 1 home loss in their last 10, and they have 3 straight home clean sheets now. Sounders games had some of the lowest scoring games this season. They average just 2.1 goals per match. It's tied with Nashville for the lowest total in the league. They were also 21-13 to under 2.5 totals. Only Nashville and New York City FC played to more unders this season. They've gone 5-2 to the under in their past 7 as well. Overall, in goals allowed, Seattle and Nashville tied for the least goals allowed this season with 32. But their opponents here, LAFC, were not that far behind, only allowing 39 goals this season. Despite an up-and-down year for LAFC, we never necessarily knew what we were going to get some weeks. They've now won 4 of 5, and they have scored 16 goals in those 5 games. But prior to that, they were 1-2-5, and they had a streak of being shut out in 4 straight and also in 5 of 6. Now, many of those goals that they've scored recently have come from Golden Boot winner Dennis Bouanga, who has been scorching hot. He has scored 9 of those 16 goals in those last 5 games. Now, no team in MLS has a longer home playoff undefeated streak in all-time MLS history right now than Seattle. They've not lost at home in the playoffs in 19 games. That's going to be a tough streak to go against here if you're looking to bet this game. This could be the last we see of this version of Seattle as well. Rio Diaz and Ladero, they're no longer sure starts for the Sounders, and they could be gone after this season. With those stars not scoring has been down. Now, this season, it was Albert Rusnak who led the team with 5 game-winning goals. He's added 2 more in the playoffs as well. Now, we also may not see one LAFC star. The turf in Seattle might mean that Chiellini doesn't play, which would mean Long and Murillo in at center back, but we still might see Chiellini. It's not that he never plays, but we might not see him. My instinct is these 2 top teams, we probably would see goals, but both have also been very good defensively, and Seattle has been lights out at home. They don't allow a lot of goals, and the head-to-heads between these teams have been very tight this season and historically. Now, as we're about to wrap this up, let's start getting into the picks. Now, I usually try to cap my parlays at 3 games. We have 4 games this season, so I think this will be the one that is left out of the parlay. I think it looks too close to call, but I think we could see maybe a draw in this game going to extra time. You could certainly get good odds on a draw between Seattle and LAFC. Which brings us to the parlay. I'm going to go Orlando and Columbus, both teams to score for the first leg. As we've talked about, Orlando is scoring goals. Columbus always scores goals. They always allow goals. Even if it's 1-1, that will hit the first leg on both teams to score. You could very easily see both teams to score between Cincinnati and Philadelphia. As the home team, the Supporters' Shield winners, I'm just going to ask Cincinnati to get 1 goal. And then in Houston and SKC, I'm just not sure. I do think we do see goals in some way, shape, or form, whether that's from both or Houston just puts on a clinic at home. We'll go over 1.5 goals there. So if we go Orlando, Columbus, both teams to score, Cincinnati to score, and Houston and SKC over 1.5, I've gotten that at plus 135 odds over at Caesars. So that's it. Whether you're riding with this MLS parlay this weekend or you take some of the stats that I've thrown out there and use them to make your own bets, good luck with all of your MLS bets this weekend. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed this content, and we'll see you next time.